Yes, today we are talking about early running back rankings. It's the football therapist here, about to break down some of my early top 12 rankings and give you some of the tiers. So let's do this. So guys, as we go through the rankings, remember, I value tiers a lot. To me, when there's a tier gap, it's a lot bigger of a difference between the rankings and the players within the rankings. Case in point, when you look at these rankings, the gap between Dalvin Cook and Jonathan Taylor is a bit bigger than the gap between Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley because it is a tier break. I do value those tier breaks, and the guys within the tiers are a lot closer to me than the rankings itself. Also, I'll just be giving a little bit of a snapshot of these players. I'll be breaking down a ton of these guys during the offseason and individual videos where I will be using a lot more statistical content and more advanced metrics to break these players down. So let's talk about the top three. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook. To me, Christian McCaffrey is my 1.01, my number one ranked running back. The guy, when he's on the field, is just a PPR machine. He only played 3 games this year, but every single game he put up 25 plus PPR fantasy points. He's just unstoppable. Now, yes, there are those injury concerns, but I see a big bounce back year coming for him. I think when he's fully healthy going into next year with a longer offseason where he can really get those reps, he'll be ready to go. And I would not mind taking him first overall again in your drafts. Alvin Kamara for me is my second ranked player right now. Now again, a lot of people are questioning the quarterback situation for Alvin Kamara going into 2021, but it doesn't really matter to me. I think looking at this year, a lot of people were down on him because Taysom Hill took a lot of his rushing upside away from him in terms of the rushing touchdowns. But going into the offseason, when they have a full year to make a game plan if Taysom Hill is going to be their quarterback, they'll work some of that out. I still think Alvin Kamara will be the focal point of this offense. He has 80 plus receptions in each of his 4 years as a running back. I think he's just going to excel again. And maybe he doesn't finish in the second spot, but he's really safe to me. And I think that I would take him at that number 2 or number 3 overall pick again. Lastly, Dalvin Cook to me, he played a full year injury free. The guy was just a beast again. He's a PPR machine. He gets a lot of work out of the backfield. He's very good on the ground. He scores touchdown, and he's going to be again safe going into 2021 as long as the situation in Minnesota stays the same. So these guys are the ones to me that are those elite upside playmakers and have that really safe. So looking at this second tier of players, these are guys who I think definitely have that top 5 overall upside at the running back position, but they feel a little less safer than those top 3 guys for multiple different reasons. Starting with Jonathan Taylor, I'm all aboard the Taylor Express going into 2021. The guy was a stud down the stretch. He had 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games. He was just a monster. And I think a lot of people forget that this was the guy everyone was raving about coming into the 2020 season as the top running back who can really explode on the scene. I know he started slow a little bit. He had some issues in the middle of the season. He got benched a game. He had some COVID issues too, I believe. But this is a guy who is in a great situation and has the talent to be the number 1 overall back in the league, in my opinion. Nick Chubb at number 5. I think that this is a guy, again, who showed that he can really put up safe numbers on the ground. He could really break tackles. That's one of the things that he excels at. I think injuries are a little bit of a concern. We saw it last season. He missed some time, but he still finished with over 1,000 yards rushing. So to me, again, he seemed a little bit safer than some of these guys behind him. Now, Derrick Henry, the guy just had over 2,000 yards. Why isn't he as safe as these guys? Well, I talked about it a lot last offseason. he's not really utilized in the passing game. Going into 2021, I still think Derrick Henry can be a really safe, reliable RB1. But again, my concerns is he's going to regress. He's probably not going to put up 2,000 yards next year. We look at historical trends, running backs who have put up 2,000 yards mostly have failed to meet that standard again. Some of those guys having their yardage cut in half. So to me, he's more of a back-end RB1, but because of the way he consistently performs, he feels relatively safe to be put here at 6. Now the last two guys I've talked a lot about on my page. I made a YouTube video on Saquon Barkley. Check that one out if you haven't. Also hit subscribe if you're liking these videos. I'll be doing a lot more individual content as well as these rankings. But it's Zeke and Saquon Barkley, two of the top 3 guys that we've talked about over the past few years. Elliott, we saw a little bit of slowed play throughout the season last year, but to me, it really is from Dak Prescott getting hurt. I mean, once he went down, that offense slowed down a ton. They weren't as explosive. They couldn't move the ball. There was also some offensive line issues. So while a lot of people may be wanting to fade Elliott completely, I still think he's a relatively safe RB1. So that's why I'm putting him at number 7 right here. I think that I can interchange him with Barkley at times, maybe even put him a little bit higher. But right now, number 7 seems relatively safe for Zeke going into 2021. Again, with the offseason, we don't know if Dak will be back, but I'm going to assume that, so I think he could be a locked and loaded RB1. And lastly, I really discussed Saquon Barkley a ton in a video. If you haven't done so, please check that out. I think that the main concern for me is coming off of that ACL injury. He's still in this tier. I would definitely move him up a ton to possibly even RB4 if I find out he starts getting good reports on his recovery. But right now, because of those injury concerns that we see, a lot of these running backs get hurt coming off that ACL injury. I'm going to put him at number 8 right now. But again, he's really close to a Jonathan Taylor, and all of these guys could be So guys, before we begin tier 3, just know this tier extends past DeAndre Swift. To me, this is going to be a little bit of a deeper tier than we've seen in years past, as this was a really good rookie class, the 2020 rookies. And there's a couple of rookies in the 2021 class that can really perform well and potentially be low-end RB1s or high-end RB2s. Miles Sanders I broke down a little bit on a video. I think that the thing that I love about Sanders going into 2021 is the opportunity that he has with a new coach, a new quarterback, and potentially a whole new system. I think the Eagles trading Carson Wentz would be the right move, but in terms of fantasy, it really is going to impact Sanders a ton. Jalen Hurts is more of a run-oriented quarterback. I think that he brings another element to the team offensively, and I think that it'll open things up for Miles Sanders to be more efficient than he has been in the last 2 years. I think I see kind of a Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram type offense going into 2021, where both of these guys will be really efficient on the ground. J.K. Dobbins, I also broke him down in a video, but the one thing I love about Dobbins is that he was super efficient last year, even though he didn't get that big volume. I mean, he was first in true yards per carry, and he was third in yards per touch. He was in a big rotation, but now some of that rotation is gone. Mark Ingram is no longer on the team. Gus Edwards could be gone. And to me, J.K. Dobbins feels like a 3-down back who could really thrive in this offense that has the most rush attempts per game. Based on volume alone, I really think that he could be a top 10 to 15 back going into 2021. And of course, I just love him as a player, so I'm really high on him as well. Cam Akers and DeAndre Swift, these are two guys going into their second year, just like Dobbins, just like Taylor. Both guys have great opportunity. Both guys performed at a really high level down the stretch last year. DeAndre Swift, he was a little bit banged up, but he had some really good games once he started getting that usage. And same thing with Cam Akers. Once he started getting that lead role, He was really hot down the stretch. He had a monster game versus the Patriots. And going into 2021, you have to feel high on both of these guys. Now, the big thing for both of these players, as we know, is that there was a monster trade where now Matthew Stafford is the Rams quarterback and then Jared Goff is the Lions quarterback. So that does have some impact on these guys' fantasy values, but depending on what these teams do for the rest of the offseason, I think that both of these guys still can thrive with their new quarterbacks and still have a big 2021 year. So if you guys like this video, please leave a like. Let me know what you think about my top 12 rankings below, and I'm going to be breaking down some of these players over the next few weeks. Thank you all again, and see you guys soon.